Also in the UK, King Charles III has made his youngest brother, Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh. The title was last held by their father, Prince Philip, from 1947 until his death in 2021.
They smiled for the cameras. They stood side by side. But behind the palace gates, a quiet war was unfolding. A brooch worn like a weapon. A seat quietly denied. A calculated snub so precise that royal insiders are still talking about it. Prince Edward, the quiet one, the loyal one, the royal they always underestimated, may have just made one of the boldest moves the Windsor family has seen in decades. And Camilla never saw it coming. Stay with me, because this story reaches all the way to the crown. The quiet prince, who is no longer staying quiet. For most of his life, Prince Edward, now the Duke of Edinburgh, has been the royal the tabloids barely noticed. While Andrew dominated headlines with scandals, Harry left the country, and Charles fought his long road to the throne, Edward quietly carried out his duties year after year. But between 2025 and 2026, something changed. Edward is the youngest child of the late Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, as well as the youngest sibling of King Charles III. As of 2026, he stands 15th in the line of succession. He was never expected to become a power player. He was the spare to the spare. Yet the mainstream press often misses one important fact. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh undertook several solo overseas tours in 2025, showing unwavering loyalty to King Charles while supporting causes deeply important to them. At a time when other royals faced controversy or uncertainty, Edward and Sophie became the monarchy's most dependable ambassadors. Inside royal circles, loyalty is everything. Public opinion reflects that clearly. Around 50 to 51% of Britons view Prince Edward and Sophie positively, while only a small percentage hold negative opinions of them. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla's popularity has declined, with favorability numbers dropping significantly compared to previous years. Think about that for a moment. The man ignored for decades now enjoys stronger public approval than the Queen herself. So when Edward begins making subtle moves, changing schedules, declining certain engagements, or appearing at events without Camilla's allies nearby, palace insiders notice immediately. The quiet royals often speak the loudest once they finally decide to act. The brooch that said everything without words. Inside royal life, nothing is accidental. Not a glance. Not a handshake, not a seating arrangement, and certainly not a brooch. Jewelry expert Justin Daughters, managing director at Braganza, explained that brooches are among the most controlled pieces of royal jewelry. They are not decorative accidents. They are signals. Unlike necklaces or earrings, brooches do not simply frame beauty. They frame intention. Positioned close to the heart, they symbolize loyalty, remembrance, and authority. So when Camilla began choosing certain brooches during sensitive political moments inside the palace, royal watchers noticed instantly. One particular brooch, first seen in early 2023, drew enormous attention. Many believe it was gifted to Camilla by King Charles before their coronation. In February 2023, she wore a brooch shaped like the Tudor crown, decorated with sapphires, rubies, and emeralds. The Tudor crown carries deep symbolic meaning because it represents King Charles III's royal cipher. It was, in effect, Charles's authority pinned directly over her heart. Edward and Sophie answered differently. Not through statements, not through competing symbols, but through presence. They appeared where Camilla did not. They accepted engagements she was expected to lead. They quietly stepped into moments when the monarchy needed trusted and reliable faces. That restraint became its own message. In palace language, silence can be louder than confrontation. And right now, Edward and Sophie's calm restraint may be the loudest statement in the royal family. William's shadow coronation and the people missing from the picture. There's one reality shaping every decision inside Buckingham Palace right now. William is coming. Not tomorrow, perhaps. But the future reign of King William is no longer distant theory. It is the invisible force organizing the monarchy behind closed doors. Around that future throne, alliances are already forming. The real question every senior royal is quietly answering through appearances, absences, and positioning is simple. Whose future are they standing beside? One of the most closely watched events of Easter 2026 was Catherine, Princess of Wales, returning to the Easter service for the first time since 2023. She arrived beside Prince William and their 3 children. The message was unmistakable. The Wales family was back, united, healthy, ready. The timing mattered even more because it came after months of illness rumors and uncertainty surrounding the family. Their appearance together felt almost like a preview of the monarchy's next chapter. And standing close to that future stood Prince Edward. Edward attended alongside his son James, Princess, and Sir Timothy Lawrence, and Peter Phillips with his daughters and fiancée. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. Edward positioned himself beside William's future, not beside Camilla's circle. Meanwhile, several figures closely associated with Camilla were absent or distant from the spotlight. Sophie herself missed the event reportedly because she was unwell. But in royal life, even absences create speculation. Together, these moments painted a picture of a family quietly reorganizing itself around the future king. Edward appeared increasingly aligned with William's camp rather than Camilla's influence. The future monarch does not need dramatic public battles. He simply needs the right people standing beside him when the cameras begin to turn. And right now, those faces look far more like Edward and then members of Camilla's inner network. Andrew's downfall changed everything. To understand Edward's growing influence, you first have to understand what Andrew's collapse did to the family balance. Andrew's exile did not simply remove one royal from power. It created space for another. After losing public support and royal protection, Andrew was forced out of Royal Lodge, the Grand Windsor residence, where he had lived for years with Sarah Ferguson. He later moved to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate. The fallout affected the entire family structure. Edward and Sophie had originally planned to stay at Wood Farm during Easter, but those arrangements reportedly changed because of Andrew's residency situation. Their family traditions were disrupted by the continuing consequences of Andrew's disgrace. Yet Edward handled the situation very differently from how many expected. He did not complain publicly. He did not leak frustrations to the press. He did not present himself as the injured party. Instead, he quietly continued working. Inside royal institutions, that kind of discipline matters. It builds trust. And trust, more than titles, is what creates real influence behind palace walls. Instead, reports suggested that Prince Edward was among the first family members to quietly visit Prince Andrew after his latest controversy surfaced. While King Charles III reportedly kept his distance, even while staying nearby at Sandringham, Edward chose a different approach. He did not go to publicly defend Andrew. He went to handle the situation privately and encourage him to resolve the growing problems surrounding his residence at Wood Farm. That moment revealed something important about Edward's role inside the royal family. He does not avoid difficult situations, and he does not turn them into public spectacles. Instead, he works quietly behind the scenes, trying to stabilize problems before they grow larger. When King Charles released his honors list in April 2024, major recognition went to figures including Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. But notably absent from the spotlight were Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. That omission surprised many royal watchers, especially because the couple had quietly taken on additional duties after the king reduced his workload following his cancer diagnosis. Despite carrying more responsibility, they received little public recognition. Yet they continued working without complaint. And inside royal life, that kind of loyalty often carries more weight over time than public attention ever could. If supporters of Camilla believed sidelining Edward would weaken his influence, they may have badly misjudged the situation. Because inside a monarchy, popularity is not just personal, it is political. Polling began revealing a noticeable shift in public opinion. Support for Queen Camilla became increasingly divided, with unfavorable views rising steadily. At the same time, King Charles remained relatively stable in public approval, while Edward and Sophie quietly maintained some of the strongest favorability numbers within the working royal family. That matters more than many people realize. In a constitutional monarchy, public goodwill becomes a form of political strength. The royals who maintain trust with the public gain influence, flexibility, and long-term security within the institution. Another moment that caught attention came during the Commonwealth Day service. Princess Anne appeared alongside Prince William, while Catherine, Princess of Wales, was absent due to a private engagement. On the surface, it looked ordinary. But royal observers study these appearances carefully, because repeated absences and shifting group dynamics often signal deeper internal changes. The palace always tries to project unity. Yet when certain combinations of royals repeatedly appear together while others quietly fade from view, those patterns begin telling their own story. Camilla spent decades fighting for acceptance within both the monarchy and the public. She eventually succeeded and became queen. But the balance around her has continued to shift, not because of dramatic scandals alone, but because of quieter figures like Edward's steadily building influence through reliability and restraint. And to truly understand Edward's strategy, you also have to watch Sophie. In royal life, spouses are never passive figures. They operate as partners, balancing image, influence, and long-term positioning together. Sophie has become especially skilled at this. When she missed several high-profile royal events during 2026, official explanations focused on illness and scheduling. But royal commentators immediately noticed the timing. Her absences often coincided with events strongly associated with Camilla's circle. At the same time, whenever Sophie did appear publicly, she remained polished, professional, and perfectly positioned within the future-facing image of the monarchy. She was not withdrawing from royal life. She was choosing carefully where to place her visibility. That distinction matters. Edward and Sophie increasingly appear aligned with a monarchy centered around William and Catherine's future reign, rather than the current palace structure surrounding Camilla. Their strategy is subtle, disciplined, and remarkably coordinated. Inside palace politics, presence always matters. But absence can sometimes say even more. And all of this leads toward one enormous question hanging quietly over the House of Windsor. What happens after Charles? Overall support for the monarchy itself remains relatively strong in Britain. Many people still view the institution favorably and consider it an important symbol of national identity. But the individuals representing that institution continue to evolve. When Prince William eventually becomes king, the balance inside the royal family will inevitably change again. Catherine, Princess of Wales, will become queen, and Camilla's central role will naturally diminish. Whether she remains an influential royal figure or slowly fades into the background will depend largely on the years leading up to that transition. Edward appears fully aware of that reality. His approach has never been loud or dramatic. He avoids memoirs, interviews, media battles, and public complaints. Instead, he relies on duty, patience, and carefully controlled positioning. During 2025, Edward represented both the Crown and the British government on multiple overseas tours, including visits to Papua New Guinea and Japan alongside Sophie. With every appearance, he strengthened his reputation as a dependable institutional figure rather than a personality driven by palace factions. And when William's coronation eventually arrives, the royals standing closest to the center may not be the loudest voices from today. They may be the figures who quietly understood the future years before everyone else did. Right now, all signs suggest Prince Edward has already made that calculation. Quietly, deliberately, and without ever needing to announce it publicly.